Jacques Lacan, Seminar on the Purloined Letter. The Purloined Letter is a short story written in 1844 by American author Edgar Allan Poe. Jacques Lacan used this story to illustrate how desire operates and to develop his psychoanalytic theories. Summary of the Purloined Letter. In the early 19th century, the Queen of France received an important letter that she needed to hide from the king. The letter contained sensitive information that could threaten the king's honor and had the potential to change the political landscape of the kingdom. Whoever possessed the letter could gain significant power. While the queen was reading the letter, the king entered the queen's chambers unexpectedly with the minister. To avoid suspicion, the queen casually placed the letter on the table. However, noticing her nervous expression, the minister realized the letter was important. He cleverly swapped it with a similar-looking letter from his pocket. Desperate, the queen sought help from the chief inspector of the Paris police, asking him to recover the letter. Believing the letter must be well hidden due to its importance, the chief of police searched the minister's home thoroughly for months but couldn't find it. Frustrated, he offered a large reward and turned to the detective Dupin for assistance. Dupin, however, believed the letter would be hidden in plain sight. Using his connection with the minister, he visited his house under the pretense of wearing glasses to obscure his gaze. During his visit, Dupin noticed a dirty, torn letter by the fireplace. Dupin realized it was the Queen's letter. The minister had torn and damaged the Queen's letter so much that no one could tell it was hers. Dupin left behind his cigarette box that day and used it as an excuse to visit the minister's house again the next day. While the minister was distracted, Dupin switched the Queen's letter with a fake one he had prepared. This fake letter included a poetic line meant to take revenge on the minister for a past insult. The Purloined Letter. Scene structure. In this story, Lacan draws out recurring scenes. The first scene, Triangle A, takes place in the royal palace, and the second scene, Triangle B, happens in the minister's house. In the first scene, the letter is passed from the queen to the minister, and in the second, from the minister to Dupin. There are 3 glances in the triangle. Glance 1, the one who sees nothing. The king, the inspector. The glance of the king and the minister is an imaginary glance. For explanations of the imaginary, the symbolic, and the real, check the link in the pinned comment. They are fixated on surface-level appearances and fail to understand the symbolic context behind them. The king, trapped in the imaginary image of hidden secret letters, cannot spot the letter on the table. The inspector, focused on the physical image of the letter, doesn't recognize the disguised and damaged letter. Glance 2. The glance that believes the letter will not be found because the first glance cannot see. The queen, the minister. The queen and the minister's glances retreat from the symbolic to the imaginary. Viewing from the symbolic means seeing beyond superficial images, understanding things within their relationship with the other. The queen realizes that the king's glance is limited, and uses this knowledge to expose the letter in plain sight, hiding it in a symbolic way. However, she too gets trapped in the imaginary glance when the minister deceives her. The queen falls into the illusion that revealing the letter will prevent suspicion, an illusion rooted in the imaginary. In Triangle B, the minister realizes that the inspector and the police are trapped in an imaginary glance, searching for a letter that looks identical to the Queen's letter. The minister alters and disguises the appearance of the letter, taking a symbolic action to change how others perceive it. He believed in the illusion that if he damaged the letter's appearance, others would not recognize it as the Queen's letter. Glance 3. The one who knows that exposing is hiding the minister Dupin. The minister and Dupin's glances also retreat from symbolic to imaginary. The minister figures out the queen's symbolic strategy of exposing the letter to hide it. He notices the hidden complex meaning behind the exposed letter and uses that to steal it. However, the minister's symbolic glance is once again turned into an imaginary glance by Dupin, and in the end, he moves away from the complex web of symbolic meanings and falls into a surface-level glance, revealing its limitations. Initially, Dupin uses a symbolic glance to see through the minister's intentions and responds in a symbolic way. Later, he becomes consumed by personal revenge and emotions, which Lacan interprets as Dupin's glance shifting back to an imaginary glance. Personal revenge, emotions, and the desire to gain a reward are not determined by social norms or structural elements, but belong to the realm of the imaginary, which deals with personal inner motives, self-image, and feelings. Excerpts from the seminar on the Purloined Letter. Lacan's seminar on the Purloined Letter is featured at the very beginning of the French edition of his book Écrits. It's considered one of his key works that represents his psychoanalytic theory on desire and the unconscious. And to return to our cops who took the letter from the place where it was hidden, how could they have seized the letter? In what they turned between their fingers, what did they hold, but what did not answer to their description? Nor does the seeming bit of refuse the police are now handling reveal its other nature for being but half torn. Do we not in fact feel concerned with good reason, when for Dupin what is perhaps at stake is his withdrawal from the symbolic circuit of the letter? He is thus in fact fully participant in the intersubjective triad, and as such, in the median position previously occupied by the queen and the minister. Will he, in showing himself to be above it, reveal to us at the same time the author's intentions? Key point 1. The chain of signifiers forms the subject. In his seminar on the Purloined Letter, Lacan describes the letter as a signifier, whose meaning changes depending on the situation and the individual's interpretation. Signifier is a linguistic symbol that does not have a fixed meaning in itself, and it can be interpreted in various ways depending on the person or the situation. For example, the word black is a signifier, a linguistic symbol. For one person, black might symbolize melancholy or sadness, while for another person it could represent luxury or formality. The signifier Lacan refers to is not just the word itself, but a symbolic medium that triggers desire through the symbolic meaning and context assigned to the object. In the seminar on the Purloined Letter, Lacan claims that the chain of signifiers forms the subject. This means that the meanings of the language and symbols we use constantly change, depending on the situation and the people involved, and this change shapes our identity. Lacan aimed to prove this argument through the story of the Purloined Letter. The meaning of the letter is not fixed. It is reinterpreted through a chain of meanings created by the characters. Through this process of generating new meanings for the signifier letter, the characters define and shape their identities. Moreover, Lacan argues that the letter delays meaning through displacement, which means that the signifier letter, which induces desire, changes the place of the subject or the subject's perspective, and the meaning of the letter continuously changes, causing the definition of meaning to be delayed. The following examples from the novel show how the characters constantly generate different meanings of the signifier letter and define their identities, which clearly illustrates Lacan's assertion that the chain of signifiers forms the subject. 1. The king. The content or meaning of the letter lies entirely outside the king's realm of awareness. He has no recognition of the letter's existence and forms his identity without any emotions or reactions to the letter. To the Queen. To the Queen, the letter becomes a symbol of secrecy, and thus she comes to define herself as someone who must protect a secret. The letter is not just a piece of paper. It stirs her anxiety and dictates her actions. Because of the letter, the Queen constantly adjusts her actions and identity to align with its significance. If the letter didn't exist, the Queen would have no reason to define herself or act in such a way. However, with the letter's presence, the Queen begins to see herself as the person who must protect the secret and behaves accordingly. 3. The Minister. As the letter passes to the minister, it takes on a new meaning of power and control. Before stealing the letter, the minister viewed himself as a significant figure in his power dynamics with the Queen. After stealing the letter, however, he begins to define himself as someone who has escaped the Queen's control and can now wield power. His actions of hiding and defacing the letter reflect his intention to strengthen his power, turning the letter into a tool for maintaining his authority. 4. The Inspector. For the inspector, the letter is not seen in terms of its symbolic meaning or relational context, but is merely perceived as a physical object. To him, the letter is not a signifier of power or emotional connection, but simply a tool to solve the case. Through the letter, the inspector defines himself as someone tasked with carrying out an assigned mission, and this identity drives him to focus on the act of physically locating the letter. 5. Dupin. As the letter moves into Dupin's possession, it acquires new meanings, a chance for revenge, and an opportunity for financial reward. Dupin uses the letter as a means to settle past humiliations inflicted by the minister, turning it into a tool for vengeance. At the same time, he gains further motivation by receiving monetary compensation from the inspector, making his act of revenge even more purposeful. The letter drives Dupin to resolve on revenge, and he defines himself as the agent of vengeance. Lacan's idea that the chain of signifiers forms the subject can be explained using the example of expensive vehicle license plates as a signifier. Custom number plates like 1 or VIP are highly valued for their scarcity and symbolic meaning. They are often sold at extremely high prices and used as tools for investment and status display. The most expensive license plate ever sold was worth around $15 million. A vehicle license plate is not just a tool for identification. It serves as a symbolic medium that evokes desire, is assigned different meanings by various individuals, and shapes their identities while influencing their actions. For a successful entrepreneur who wants to show off wealth and power, the meaning of the signifier is that a number plate represents not just wealth, but a unique kind of power that distinguishes it from other luxury items, like yachts, high-end cars, or mansions. In terms of identity formation, owning a rare license plate allows the entrepreneur to define themselves as someone who has achieved a level of success that cannot be easily replicated. Their actions include paying astronomical prices to acquire the plate, attaching it to luxury vehicles to establish a distinctive image, and frequently showcasing it on social media or in public to highlight their unparalleled success. For an ordinary person aspiring to economic success, the meaning of the signifier is interpreted as a symbol of success. It fuels their desire for upward mobility and a higher social status. In the process of striving for such a plate, they define themselves as someone determined to succeed and aim for a better future. Their actions may include comparing themselves to expensive plate owners, mimicking their lifestyles, or adopting the imagery of their success as a personal goal. For law enforcement, the meaning of the signifier might be a tool for legal surveillance and control of specific social groups. Expensive plates could represent targets of scrutiny. In terms of identity formation, the police see themselves as enforcers who monitor power and corruption. Their actions involve tracking the activities of expensive plate owners and investigating potential links to crimes like money laundering or tax evasion. For valet attendants, the signifier represents the status and wealth of their customers. It serves as a standard for determining the level of treatment. In terms of identity formation, valet attendants may see themselves as providers of exclusive service to elite clients. Their actions include offering extra care to vehicles with rare plates and giving their owners preferential treatment. Examples like real estate, luxury handbags, high-end watches, and rare art pieces, in addition to vehicle license plates, act as symbolic signifiers and mediums of desire. These items are great examples of how they shape the identity of individuals in everyday life. This phenomenon aligns with Lacan's theory, which explains how signifiers operate on an unconscious and linguistic level to shape a subject's self and desires, while also transforming relationships between the subject and others. Excerpts from the seminar on the Purloined Letter. Which is why we have decided to illustrate for you today the truth which may be drawn from that moment in Freud's thought under study, namely, that it is the symbolic order which is constitutive for the subject. By demonstrating in a story the decisive orientation which the subject receives from the itinerary of a signifier. If what Freud discovered and rediscovers with a perpetually increasing sense of shock has a meaning, it is that the displacement of the signifier determines the subjects, in their acts, in their destiny, in their refusals, in their blindnesses, in their end and in their fate. Their innate gifts and social acquisitions notwithstanding, without regard for character or sex, and that willingly or not, everything that might be considered the stuff of psychology, kit and caboodle, will follow the path of the signifier. The singularity of the letter is the true subject of the tale. Should they pass beneath its shadow, they become its reflection. We might even admit that the letter has an entirely different, if no more urgent meaning for the queen than the one understood by the minister. But the letter, no more than the neurotic's unconscious, does not forget him. It forgets him so little that it transforms him more and more in the image of her who offered it to his capture, so that he now will surrender it, following her example, to a similar capture. Falling in possession of the letter, admirable ambiguity of language, its meaning possesses them. Key point 2. The signifier triggers repetition automatism. Unconscious. Unconscious refers to mental activities or impulses that we do not consciously recognize. According to Lacan, the unconscious is not just the realm of repressed thoughts or emotions, but a place where the subject's internal conflicts and desires are shaped within language and symbolic structures. This concept was first introduced by Freud, and Lacan expanded and developed his theory based on it. Repetition automatism. Repetition automatism is a phenomenon in which the subject repeatedly experiences an impulse to fill an inherently unfillable lack. In other words, attempts to satisfy the lack originating in the unconscious are repeated, but they never fully resolve the lack, instead continually recreating the desire, trapping the subject in a chain of desire. As a result, the subject continuously seeks objects in pursuit of a desire that can never be fully satisfied. Example of repetition automatism. A person who feels a lack of intellectual ability, academic background, or social status. Titles such as prestigious university diplomas, impressive careers, and titles like doctor, lawyer, or professor stimulate the subject's lack of intellectual superiority and social recognition. These signifiers act not just as credentials, but as symbolic means the subject uses to prove and gain recognition from others. The subject feels an intense desire to be acknowledged for their intellectual superiority, and they engage in repeated behaviors to satisfy this desire. For example, they might show off their academic achievements or constantly emphasize their professional titles. They engage in debates or discussions where they can show off their logical thinking and knowledge, wanting to feel superior. But since this satisfaction is temporary, the subject repeatedly performs actions to feel superiority. This is an example of repetition automatism, where the desire to fulfill a lack unconsciously governs the subject's behavior. The signifier triggers repetition automatism. Lacan argues that signifiers continually provoke unconscious impulses to fill a lack, and the subject repeats behaviors in response to these impulses. In the Purloined Letter, the signifier letter stimulates the unconscious lacks of each character and causes them to repeatedly perform certain actions. The process of the letter triggering the unconscious drives in the characters is explained as follows. The letter appears in the royal palace. Its contents threaten the king's authority and power, but the exact details are not revealed in the novel. Upon receiving the letter, the queen feels an unconscious lack related to power and honor, and her desire to protect these leads her to try to hide the letter. After the letter is stolen, the queen attempts to retrieve it. This is an expression of repetition automatism to fulfill the lack of power and honor. If the queen did not feel a lack or had a complete sense of self not dependent on such things, she would not have been bothered by the dishonor or loss of authority caused by the letter. Instead, she would have openly shared the letter with the king or made it public without hesitation. The minister, after seeing the queen's letter, is seized by an unconscious desire to strengthen his power and political position, leading him to steal the letter. If the minister had felt secure in his own power, or believed that he was complete without it, he would not have stolen the letter. However, the signifier of the letter triggers his lack and arouses a desire to fill it with greater power, which ultimately leads him to steal it. The minister then damages and conceals the letter, which reflects his repetition automatism to secure a superior position of power in order to fill his lack. Lacan notes that Dupin senses the minister's beast-like unconscious craving for power and views him like a beast of prey ready to spring. The inspector can be seen as having an unconscious lack related to his professional abilities and social position. The letter stimulates this lack, which leads to his desire to gain recognition. If the inspector felt sufficiently acknowledged for his skills and authority, he would not have repeatedly searched the same places, performing obsessive and inefficient actions in the process of looking for the letter. After retrieving the letter from the minister's house, Dupin leaves a letter with a poetic line that signifies revenge. This shows that Dupin had been emotionally wounded by the minister in the past and experienced a lack of self-esteem. If Dupin had high self-esteem, he would not have been emotionally shaken by the minister's insult, and instead of seeking revenge, he would have forgiven him. The letter triggers Dupin's lack of self-esteem, causing a repetition automatism and leading him to take revenge. The following is a common example of how the signifier girlfriend unconsciously triggers a repetition automatism in different individuals, leading to various behaviors. Signifier that stimulates unconscious desire, girlfriend. Person 1, a man who feels a lack of social recognition. Unconscious lack, a lack of social recognition and attention from others. The signifier girlfriend triggers a desire to show others, through the relationship with their girlfriend, that they are happy and successful, and to gain their acknowledgement. This results in behavior such as frequently posting pictures with their girlfriend on social media, showing off their happiness and trying to evoke envy from others. The signifier girlfriend acts as a symbol of being loved, representing social value among others. It stimulates the subject's desire to gain social recognition and value. If this person already felt socially acknowledged, or did not want others' recognition, they would not spend time and energy posting happy pictures with their partner on social media to inform others. Even well-known celebrities who already receive plenty of social attention and recognition continue to post pictures of their happy relationships on social media. This occurs because their sense of lack originates from the real, which is fundamentally unfillable, and this intensifies their desire and sense of lack. Person 2. A man who feels a lack of affection. Unconscious lack, a lack of affection. The signifier girlfriend triggers a desire to gain love and emotional satisfaction from their girlfriend. This leads to behaviors like contacting their girlfriend excessively or displaying obsessive actions. For the subject, the signifier girlfriend signifies someone who fills the lack of love and stimulates an impulse to be loved. This person unconsciously believes, "I will be unhappy without a girlfriend," and experiences extreme anxiety about breaking up. If this person felt whole, regardless of having a girlfriend, they would not hold on to someone who wanted to leave, nor would they be greatly disturbed by a breakup. They would not miss or mourn their partner even after separation. Someone who is full of love and feels complete takes satisfaction in giving love rather than receiving it. They feel no emotional lack or pain even if their love is not returned or if they are betrayed, and they forgive everything. Person 3. A man who has been hurt by their girlfriend. Unconscious lack, a lack of emotional stability and self-esteem. The signifier girlfriend triggers a desire to protect themselves from the pain inflicted by women and avoid further suffering. This leads to behaviors such as hating women because of past wounds from a girlfriend, refusing to enter new relationships, isolating themselves to avoid pain from women, or defending themselves against potential emotional harm. For this subject, the signifier girlfriend means someone who can cause emotional pain and stimulates an unconscious desire to avoid suffering. If this person were someone with high self-esteem and emotional strength, they would not be affected by hurtful words or actions from their girlfriend. They would not view women who inflict such pain as targets for hate or revenge, but rather as emotionally fragile and immature individuals to be embraced. Emotionally stable individuals are open to new relationships without fear of pain and are not tied down by past experiences. Person 4. A man who only cares about a woman's look. Unconscious lack, a lack of genuine emotional connection or inner fulfillment. Girlfriend triggers a desire to pursue sensory pleasure. It results in behaviors like frequently changing girlfriends, to continuously seek sensory pleasures or endlessly searching for more beautiful women on social media, chasing after idealized and fantasy-like images of women. For this subject, the signifier girlfriend represents a temporary means of fulfilling desire by providing sensory pleasure, finding someone who can offer emotional connection. Or inner satisfaction is difficult, and even when possible, achieving inner fulfillment takes considerable time. Thus, the subject opts for an alternative method of filling the lack through girlfriend, which offers immediate pleasure. They also hold an imaginary belief that having a beautiful girlfriend will make me happy, but in reality, this experience often deepens their sense of lack. The root of this lack originates from the real, and through the signifier girlfriend, the impulse is repeatedly triggered, trapping the subject in the chain of desire. Excerpts from the seminar on the Purloined Letter. Given the intersubjective modulus of the repetitive action, it remains to recognize in it a repetition automatism in the sense that interests us in Freud's text. We shall see that their displacement is determined by the place which a pure signifier, the Purloined Letter, comes to occupy in their trio. And that is what will confirm for us its status as repetition automatism. Dupin does not fail to stress that this is an artifice, describing behind the bogus finery the vigilance of a beast of prey ready to spring, but that this is the very effect of the unconscious in the precise sense that we teach, that the unconscious means that man is inhabited by the signifier. So runs the signifier's answer, above and beyond all significations, You think you act when I stir you at the mercy of the bonds through which I knot your desires. Thus do they grow in force and multiply in objects, bringing you back to the fragmentation of your shattered childhood. So be it. Such will be your feast until the return of the stone guest I shall be for you, since you call me forth.